Although Gibraltar is now very much a different place, the government is still uneasy about the relaxed attitude to the lockdown being taken by some people. It has therefore asked for the necessary legislation to be drawn up for the police to be able to issue fixed penalty notices to those flouting the rules. Fabian Picardo prefers not to have to use the special powers, but for the sake of public safety, wants to keep it in his armoury.
We've decided not to do so at this stage, but we have asked for the necessary legislation to be drafted should such powers become a necessary addition to the arsenal of our police. For now, please help our police officers, our customs officers, our GDP officers, all of them working together to help our GHA by following instructions and complying with the rules of our social lockdown. Remember that power is always there. A police officer already can report you, and that would go to the court, and the court would determine whether you are acting properly or not. So I would say that it's a slippery slope to think that things are just a matter of time away when you're dealing with difficult issues like civil liberties, and that would be an issue which, if it did become relevant, would have to go to the Cabinet. The Cabinet would give it very serious consideration, but very careful consideration, and I would want to consult with the Leader of the Opposition before I took such a step, and we would want to seek to avoid that. But people need to help us to avoid that by ensuring that they're out only if they need to be and not simply being out because they want to be. That's not the situation in which we're living today.
The object is to reduce transmission of the virus. Numbers of infected cases continue to rise, with 69 cases now confirmed locally, 35 of whom are active. There are 201 pending tests, with the number of swabs being taken also increasing. This is due to the drive-through test centre now being fully functioning, where over 300 tests can be carried out on a daily basis. A second test lane is also being created to carry out 400 further random tests. The Chief Minister said the government was in full control of the situation, with daily consultation among Platinum Command at 6 Convent Place, comprising Mr Picardo, his deputy, the Governor and the Commander British Forces, amongst other senior representatives. An operations room has also been set up at the Health Authority, where the major incident protocols include the redeployment of staff from less busy departments into frontline roles. St Bernard's Hospital is being backed up with the newly named and now operational Nightingale Europa Field Hospital, which is to be led by former Director for Medical Services, Dr. Daniel Cassaglia, who recently stepped down from the post on the back of an industrial tribunal.
Look, today what we're trying to do is ensure that we give every patient that needs the help the care that they require. We're not looking at anybody's claims when it comes to industrial relations. We're not looking to any issues in industrial tribunal cases, etc. We're all rowing together as part of Team Gibraltar to deliver the care that we need. These are issues of life and death. I'm not going to be trifled with issues like that.
Gibraltar is receiving solid support from the British government. This has been clearly outlined by the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who's written to Fabian Picardo pledging London's support for the ROC with practical and economic assistance.
The letter which I received on Saturday begins with a pledge from Mr Johnson that the UK are committed to standing with us and supporting us during this difficult time. The Prime Minister goes on to explain that despite some inflexible EU regulations, the Secretary of State for International Trade has accelerated the delivery of additional supplies of personal protective equipment to Gibraltar. The letter also notes that Spain has agreed not to hinder the delivery of this equipment, something of which we were already aware from our direct contacts with the Spanish administration. In terms of the economic impact of the current crisis, the Prime Minister states in his letter that he wants to offer clear and unequivocal reassurance to me that the UK will support the government of Gibraltar as we manage these challenging economic consequences.
And there was medical advice at the press conference too, including on the anti-malaria medication chloroquine, which should not be taken as there is no evidence of its effectiveness against COVID-19 whilst being toxic. The advice followed information from pharmacies that individuals were attempting to obtain the medication over the counter. Dr. Awal also had advice for smokers, appealing to them to quit, given the evidence coming through that COVID-19 affects the lungs and is therefore proving a greater risk for those who smoke.
The COVID virus affects the lungs. Smoking affects the immunity and the resilience of the lungs. And the evidence is showing that there's an increased risk of harm from COVID virus to smokers. So please, please consider this as a good opportunity to quit.
There was also some positive news, as the Chief Minister described an 89-year-old lady who has recovered from the virus as a beacon of hope. But in comparing today's generation to those who have lived through previous conflicts, he appealed to everyone not to become 21st century snowflakes and battle the virus by staying home and staying safe without overwhelming the health services.